Okay, so for the apples, I'll just do one, and then I'm going to turn off the camera, and then I'll come back when I've got it full. So you're just peeling the apple. Hands are washed, right? I've washed my hands before I started this. Now my hands are covered in pastry, but that's fine. So peeling one apple. Get all the skin off. And then I just cut it in chunks. Take off that little piece of skin. Just rough chunks. You know, I'll cut the big chunks first, and then I'll cut it into slightly smaller chunks, but you want good, and I use Macintosh apples. I always use Macintosh apples because they're nice and crisp. They have good, you know, they keep their shape, or they keep their body, and they've got that crisp, tart sort of. So there's one apple, and it's getting coated in flour, which is good because that's going to help the sauce when we cook it not be too runny. So that's one apple, and I'm going to pause. I'm going to do the rest. I'm going to probably use, that's one, I'll probably use maybe 5, even 6 more apples because I like a nice big apple-y pie. Okay, I'm going to pause for a minute. So I've got 6 large Macintosh apples chopped up, and I also used the other half of lemon I had and squeezed it into here, so that keeps the apples from oxidizing. The acid just prevents that. So now I'm going to add some sugar. I've got about half a cup of brown sugar, another half cup of white in here, and I'm just going to dump that in and mix it around. And I just like to get a feel. I don't like a sweet pie. I like it, you know, just delicious, but not overly sweet. So as long as all the apples are, you know, that you can feel this kind of greeny texture they get. If they're all fairly well covered, this looks like it could use a bit more brown sugar. So I'm just going to throw maybe another, you know, couple of tablespoons in. I don't measure generally, but I want that brown kind of caramely sauce, so I'm going to put another. So I just added in total probably about another quarter cup, and that looks good to me. It's nice and brown, and they're all well coated. Just a little bit of white sugar in there. And now I'm going to add some cinnamon, and I like lots of cinnamon. So I just dumped, that's about a tablespoon. I'm going to put maybe another half tablespoon in there and stir that around. Oh, it smells so good, and you can just see by the color in the feel. That's how you cook. You can see, okay, those look like they're going to be good. And I'm just going to rinse my hands. So just for some added flavor, not too much, I'll scrape in a little bit of nutmeg. Not too much because it can be really overpowering, but it adds a nice depth of flavor. And I'll put in a little bit of Chinese 5-spice too, mostly because I don't have any cloves, and this has cloves in it. It has cinnamon and cloves, but it also has 3 other ingredients that have a licorice taste, star anise and fennel and something else. So I just want to use a little tiny bit of this, maybe even just a quarter of a teaspoon, because I want that clove flavor, but I don't want too much of the licorice flavor. And I'm going to mix that up. And that is done. That's just ready to go. So just leave that, and then we'll start on our strawberry rhubarb. I'm just going to set this aside. Get rid of these apples. Now, for the strawberry rhubarb, it's very simple. The strawberries are washed. You cut out the stem. Cut them in half and then half again if they're big like this. And so I'm going to use probably, I don't know, I'll probably use 3/4 of this, so I don't know, it'll probably be about 12 strawberries. Generally you want maybe half or a third the amount of strawberries versus the amount of rhubarb you put in, because strawberries really have a lot of water, and they break down. So you don't want your pie filling to be too runny. It is going to be slightly runny regardless because you just can't get around it with these. That's why we have the cornstarch here. We don't add it to apple, but we are going to add some to this. You could also use tapioca powder just to thicken the juice a bit so it's not quite so runny. So I'll do a few more of these strawberries. And I'll put some more strawberries in later, but I'm just going to show you, I'm going to cut some rhubarb. This rhubarb's been washed. I should get my cutting board. This rhubarb is washed. We're going to use more rhubarb than strawberries, definitely. Probably double the rhubarb to strawberries at least. So we'll just cut off these ends that we don't need, and in about 1-inch pieces, okay? So get rid of that. Make sure you don't ever put any leaves of the rhubarb in unless you are intending to poison someone, because they are poisonous. Okay, so I'll add these to the strawberries. You can, some of this long string, you can pull it off, it doesn't matter. You can cook it in, whatever. If you see them just like that. So we need, quite a bit more here. So I'm going to add some more strawberries, I'm going to add some more rhubarb, and then we'll come back. Okay, I've transferred this to a bigger bowl. I used 4 large stalks of rhubarb and about almost a quart of strawberries. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of lemon zest, which is just the outside, the very outside. You don't want any of the white pith of the lemon. I've got one of these zesters, but I just find it a pain in the butt to use, so I prefer to just chop my own zest and then just chop it up. So stay as close to the outside as you can so it's practically clear. You can practically see the knife through it. And then I'm just going to finely dice that, chop it into a really fine, like as if you were chopping garlic. And I'm just going to toss it in there too, just for a little depth of flavor. So I'll just chop that up. Okay, you can see it on my knife here. It's just a really fine dice, so I'm just going to toss some of that in. And then add some sugar. I'm not really measuring. I'm just going to go again with the feel. It'll probably be about half a cup of sugar. Just make sure everything's coated. Now the thing about this is you do want to let it sit for a few minutes before you put it in the pie, because a lot of the juice of the strawberries will kind of leak out, and then when you're spooning this into your pie crust, you can leave that extra juice in the bowl because you're still going to get even more juice in the pie. If you come along any big strings of rhubarb like that, just get rid of them. This doesn't feel quite grainy enough to me. I'm going to add just a bit more sugar. So I'm still probably around a half, maybe 3/4 of a cup. And then, because this does get so juicy, you add cornstarch to it. So I'm just going to rinse my hands. And it seems that people generally use about 3 tablespoons. It seems like a lot, but it's flavorless. And it does cook. You don't have that raw cornstarch taste, that it does cook in, and it will make the sauce much thicker than if you didn't use any at all. So that's good, and we're going to let that sit, and now we are going to roll out our pie crust.